Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Tom Caldwell, chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd. Tom, I think I've harped on this in a previous episode, but once again, when I look at Canadian job growth, it seems to be predominantly in the public sector. 86.7% of new employment since the pandemic has been in the public sector. And that leaves a very small percentage in the private sector. Is this sustainable? What's your reaction to this?
Well, governments by definition seem to be sustainable.
Yeah.
I think that what we're seeing, though, is not necessarily a crowding out, but working for the government is a favorable thing to do. You have indexed pensions, you have long holidays, you have a degree of job security, and increasingly, governments are becoming larger and larger parts of our economy. And again, with say the COVID, you have a lot more people checking, testing, etc. And the spin-off government programs require things. But governments don't listen. You know from your own experience in the government, governments don't roll back programs. Those people on board to do that program will just find another program, or we'll switch our maladies from or our concerns from COVID to monkeypox, and we'll keep the same staff to work on that, which of course is a different kettle of fish. So government jobs are a fact of life, and governments are getting bigger and bigger and bigger relative to the rest of the Canadian economy.
It seems like we're almost sleepwalking in this. I mean, you mentioned this just earlier in this broadcast about the lack of a plan. Is there a post-COVID plan from the Canadian government for this economy, I guess was the question.
I don't think so. The plan seems to be a rigid focus on climate change, which it's like a one-trick pony. And if there is any plan beyond that, it's throwing money at aggrieved groups who will be satisfied just with more financial gifts, if you will. We don't have anything beyond that. There's nothing else there. And so you can get by with absentee management in a large corporation or in a country for a period of time.
Right.
But sooner or later, we're in a tough world with tough competition, both countries and companies.
Are we starting to see more evidence of that? Obviously, last couple of weeks, the tensions around Taiwan and China, that's with all of the blockading going on, that's affected yet again part of the supply chain. Are these kinds of tensions some things that Canadians should be worried about?
Well, it's really in the dictator's handbook. If you're having trouble at home, you have to have an external enemy to galvanize public opinion that you will keep them safe as long as you keep them in power. And you have that. You have that in Russia. You have that, and certainly in China. And listen, we're not exempt from that as well. Oh, this external threat. If you just give us these additional powers, I'll keep you safe. We've seen that in Canada,
right,
big time, and in the United States, hence many of the protests that we've experienced. So I think that's a fact of life. The China-Taiwan thing is a little bit different from the Ukraine. If China did decide to do something, there's no way we can continually reinforce or help China or help Taiwan. They're isolated. But I don't think much is going to happen. The premier of China is going for a third term, which is basically like a perennial appointment at that point in time.
Right.
I don't think he's going to do anything stupid prior to that. But remember, the Chinese populace is on side with a war with Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
They've done their propaganda task quite successfully.
Right. And are you concerned? I mean, obviously that's a huge issue when it comes to human rights, when it comes to military conflict. I'm not belittling that, but there is an economic cost to all of this as well. Is that something that you're following as well?
Well, the interesting thing is, microchips, semiconductors, that's Taiwan country. They dominate that area, but their manufacturing plants are in India and in America, et cetera. If China were to invade, it would really make a hit in that area, but it would only be temporary, and those facilities would just be blown up anyway. And I don't think China really wants to do it because they get a lot of their microchips, et cetera, out of Taiwan. My suspicion is, and remember, my guess is as bad as anyone else when it comes to this, is it's more saber rattling than anything else at this point in time. I don't think anybody's ready to have a big war over it right now.
And of course, we've got the recent CHIPS legislation that passed the US Congress. So that's a long-term play, not a short-term. I grant you that, but at least it shows that legislators are understanding why the supply chain is very important. Before you comment on that, we're going to take another brief break. Stay with us. We'll be back after these messages.